truth and nothing but the truth. Ernest Simon Edgley, Police Constable 47Y, attached Fulchester Central, model.
Constable Edgley, on the night of Saturday, November the 9th, through to the early morning hours of Sunday, November the 10th, you were on duty, were you not, at Burnt Bridge Estate, Fulchester?
Yes, sir.
And while you were on duty there, did anything happen?
Yes, sir. There was a fire in a clump of trees at the back of a plot of land on Burnt Bridge Avenue, sir.
Which you discovered?
Yes, sir.
Did you form any view as to the cause of the fire?
Yes, sir. Somebody had gone to a lot of trouble to get it started, sir.
You mean it was deliberate?
Yes, sir. Rags and twists of newspaper had been soaked in petrol, then packed down tight against the roots of about 8 or 9 of the trees.
Are we not to hear from a fire officer?
Oh, the cause of fire is not disputed, my lord. The fire officer's report is in the agreed bundle. Page 1.
And at what time did you discover the fire?
It was just gone 1, sir, 2 or 3 minutes past 1.
Now, before you discovered the fire, did you see anything else in Burnt Bridge Avenue?
Yes, sir. I saw a car parked without lights just in front of Colonel Edgecombe's plot of land, sir.
Colonel Edgecombe's plot of land?
Yes, sir, that's where the fire was.
And this car, had you seen the car before?
Oh, yes, sir. Hundreds of times. Big blue Yankee job, 1964 Cadillac. Very unusual in this part of the world. I knew it the moment I set eyes on it. And there were 1 or 2 other identifying marks I recognised. There was a row of bullet holes across the back window.
Bullet holes?
Yes, my lord, it's a plastic stick-on strip, and if you paste it onto glass, it looks like a row of bullet holes.
Oh, yes, yes.
And there were a pair of foxtails dangling from the rear bumpers as well.
Also plastic, no doubt.
I wouldn't know about that, my lord.
Was there anyone with the car, in it or near it?
Yes, sir. The car's owner, the accused, Charles Berry.
Now, you say the accused. Are you quite certain of that?
Quite certain, my lord. I've known him for a long time, 9, 10 years. He's a used car dealer. He's got a showroom, service yard, and a couple of petrol pumps in Barron's Passage. That area used to be on my patch. I patrolled it from 66 to about back end of August last year, my lord.
So, Constable, you are in no doubt that the car you saw in Burnt Bridge Avenue was the property of the accused, and that the man you saw was the accused himself?
No doubt at all.
What was the accused doing?
He was sitting in the car by the window, looking over his shoulder towards me. As soon as I was sure I'd recognised him, I stepped out into the middle of the road and shouted to him, sir.
By name?
Yes, sir. But he started up the engine and drove away, sir.
In what fashion did he drive away?
Well, in a bit of a rush, I'd say, sir.
In a bit of a rush, at which point you discovered the fire.
That's right, sir. I smelt it at first, and then suddenly the flame seemed to be bursting up out the ground, sir.
And then?
I radioed for assistance. I also told headquarters that I'd seen the accused at the scene of the fire and that he'd driven off in what I thought was a suspicious manner. I then tried to put the flames out by beating him down with a raincoat, sir. But I got a bit close and my right hand got caught up in one of the rags and I got this, sir.
I see. And so you stopped trying to fight the fire then, did you?
No, sir, not immediately. At that point, I was a bit worried that the flames might spread. There are houses quite close by, you see, sir.
You were afraid that if the fire went unchecked, there would be damage done to nearby property.
Oh, undoubtedly there would, sir, yes.
Go on.
Well, then this lady came up to me, sir, an elderly lady with a little dog. One of the residents, I believe. I've got an idea I've seen her around there. Well, she asked me if I needed any help. I told her I'd already radioed for assistance and I advised her to stand well back. Then the fire engine arrived and a panda with a couple of the lads. One of them, P.C. Davis, drove me back into Fulchester to get my hand seen to, sir.
Thank you, Constable Edgley.
I am sorry about your hand, Constable. That must have been very painful.
Yes, thank you, madam. It's about healed up now, though.
Oh, I'm so glad. Now, yes, you said that it had just gone 1 o'clock when you discovered the burning trees. Now, how did you know the time? Did you look at your watch?
Well, I didn't have to, madam. The street lights in Burnt Bridge go out about 1 o'clock. They went out just as I turned into Burnt Bridge Avenue, madam.
Oh, so it was dark then, suddenly dark, when you entered the avenue?
Yes, madam.
How far away were you when you first noticed the car?
About 80 yards, maybe a bit less.
I believe the accused 1964 Cadillac is dark blue. Is it not the sort of blue that manufacturers describe as midnight blue?
Yes, madam, it's a darkish blue.
Yes, but you were able to see it at 80 yards, even though it was parked without lights in an unlit street on a dark night.
Yes, madam. It's a very big car.
And a very dark blue one. I must confess, I do find that a little astonishing, Constable. How close were you when you recognized it?
About 50 yards. But I wasn't absolutely sure until I got within about 30, 25 yards of it.
30 or 25, yes. Well, how close were you when you recognised the face of the accused peering out of the darkened interior of this dark car?
Well, it's hard to say. I was between 15 and 20 yards, madam.
Mm-hmm. And how far were you when you saw the strip of bullet holes and the dangling foxtails?
About 15 yards, madam.
You saw a transparent plastic strip and a pair of dark red foxtails from a distance of 15 yards?
Well, maybe it was a bit closer. It could have been a little bit closer, yes, madam.
Yes. Well, how dark was the night, Constable Edgley? Was it very dark or not very dark? Were there stars or a moon? Or was it, for instance, as dark as the accused's skin?
Oh, but Mrs. Dixon, the colour of the accused's skin is not relative to any issue before this court.
Well, my submission, my lord, is that the definite identification of a dark-skinned person sitting in a darkened car which is parked in an unlit street on a dark night is no simple, straightforward matter.
You intend to pursue that line?
Among others, my lord.
Oh, very well, Mrs. Dixon, but you may well find you are wielding a two-edged sword.
Yes, thank you, my lord. Constable Edgley, how dark was the night?
Well, it wasn't very dark, and there was a bit of a moon.
Bright enough for you to be able to recognise the accused's dark face while he was inside a darkened car and you were 15 or 20 yards away.
Well, he was leaning out the window for part of the time. And I mean, his face isn't the sort you'd make a mistake about. Now, is it, madam?
Well, there we are, Mrs. Dixon. I did warn you the sword had two edges.
Nevertheless, I suggest to you, Constable, that you are mistaken, that if you did in fact see a car, that was all you saw, and your imagination has done the rest.
I'm not given to imagining things, madam. I saw the accused and I saw him clearly.
Yes, very well, Constable Edgley. Now, this elderly lady, the one with the little dog who approached you while you were so gallantly fighting the fire with your raincoat, after your brief discussion with her, did you have occasion to use your personal radio?
No, madam, I did not. I was too busy.
You did not?
No, madam.
Ah, you have a sister, Constable Edgley, a Mrs. Patricia Manning of Burnbridge Avenue, Burnbridge Estate, Fulchester.
Yes. Yes, madam, that is correct.
Yes, until November of last year, she was she not, the Secretary-Treasurer of an organisation calling itself the Burnt Bridge Property Owners Protective Association.
I believe that was the case, madam, but I couldn't really say. I don't have much to do with my sister anymore. We don't get on very well. She married money and, well, we just sort of drifted apart, really.
My lord, I'm sure we're all fascinated to hear about the constable's family relationships, but are they relevant to the case?
Mrs. Dixon?
My lord, if you will bear with me, its relevance will become apparent.
Oh, well, if you say so.
Constable Edgley, will you take my word for it that your sister was indeed the Secretary-Treasurer of this protective association?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. She's a very active sort of woman. Always secretary, a treasurer, a chairman or something or other.
And it's correct, isn't it, that your sister's protective association was at one time involved in a prolonged and at times bitter dispute with the accused, Charles Solomon Berry, over who had the right to purchase a certain plot of land?
I wouldn't know anything about that, madam.
Well, in that case, I have another surprise for you, Constable Edgley. For the piece of land that was at the heart of this bitter dispute is none other than the piece of land on which you discovered the burning trees. Did you know that?
No, madam, I did not.
Oh, so it's pure coincidence, is it, that you of all people should discover a fire on this particular piece of land?
Yes, madam.
August the 28th. Does that date mean anything to you, Constable?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam, I believe it does. I had occasion on that date to visit the accused at his home.
And your sister, in the company of two other executive officers of this protective association, had also visited the accused on that date, hadn't she?
I didn't know that, madam. I told you I don't have much to do with my sister anymore.
Well, she did. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, that's some 7 hours before your own visit, and she quarrelled with the accused. She quarrelled bitterly. Are you really saying you didn't know about that?
No, madam, I never even knew she knew him.
So your own visit was just a coincidence?
Yes, madam.
Another coincidence, another of these fortuitous events and incidents of which life is so full. And yours, apparently, more than most. Why did you visit the accused, Constable Edgley?
It was on official business, madam. I'd had a tip-off that he'd got some bent car accessories at his house, and I went to investigate it.
With a search warrant?
Well, no, madam, there wasn't time to get one laid on. But I told the accused what I wanted, and I asked his permission to enter and search.
Which he gave?
Yes, madam.
Oh, come on now, Constable. You forced your way into that house, didn't you?
No, madam.
And you said to the accused, you should never have talked to my sister the way you did. Now I am going to have to teach you a lesson.
No, madam, I did not.
But you did wake his wife and children, didn't you? And you turned them out of their beds and you searched their room.
I had to search the place, yes.
And did you find these bent car accessories?
No, madam, I did not.
But you returned the following night, didn't you? That's the night of August the 29th.
Yes, madam, I did. The tip-off was very persistent.
And again without a search warrant.
I didn't need one. The accused invited me in. He let me in of his own free will.
Where you again woke and frightened his wife and his 2 small children.
I had to search the place.
Now tell me, Constable Edgley, if, as you say, the accused was willing to invite you into his home, why did he threaten to complain to your superiors that you were harassing him?
Oh, they're always threatening to do that.
They?
Coloureds. They're always talking about harassment.
But the accused did complain, didn't he?
I believe he did, madam, yes.
And what happened to you as a result of that complaint?
I was transferred, madam.
Ah, away from the accused's neighbourhood and out to the Burnt Bridge estate.
Yes, madam.
Well then, tell me, Constable, if, as you say, you were only doing your duty, why did your superior officers arrange for your immediate transfer?
Well, I don't know. Politics, I suppose.
Politics?
Yes, my lord. You've got to use kid gloves where coloureds are concerned. Otherwise, everybody starts shouting about prejudice, my lord.
Yes, Constable Edgley, are you saying that you were transferred because of policy, not because you were being disciplined?
Yes, my lord.
Yes.
Well, did you find these stolen car accessories on your second visit?
No, madam, I did not.
No, of course not, Constable. Now, I suggest to you that your 2 visits to the home of the accused had nothing whatsoever to do with your duty as a police officer. You visited the accused on your sister's behalf, and with every intention of terrifying his family and intimidating him.
No, madam, that was not my intention.
No, Constable.
Just a minute. Constable Edgley, did your sister, Mrs. Manning, ever invite you to involve yourself at any level in the activities of the Burnt Bridge Property Owners Association?
No, my lord, never.
Or to help her on a personal level in the association's activities?
No, my lord, she wouldn't have. She knows that as a police officer, my duty is to the public at large. Personal considerations just don't come into it.
Yes, I see. Thank you.
You are Councillor Edward Percival Leperon, and you live at 139 Burgoyne Terrace, Burnt Bridge Estate, Fulchester.
Yes, I do.
What is your occupation, Councillor?
Oh, I'm a retired businessman. Well, now I spend most of my time trying to be of service to the community. I'm on the committees of various schools and hospitals, and of course I'm a councillor.
Do you know the accused, Charles Solomon Berry?
Yes, I do. Not socially, but we have met.
Would you tell us how you came to meet him and in what connection?
Certainly. It was a most unfortunate business. Very painful. Colonel Edgecombe, perhaps you've heard of him. Colonel N.J. Edgecombe, DSO?
Nope.
Oh, an old and valued friend of mine, much respected. Well, he has this plot of land in Burnt Bridge Avenue, you see, which at one point he decided he wanted to sell. He was, I believe, planning to live abroad for his health. Poor chap, his wife had just died, and I suppose he couldn't face the prospect of building and living there all on his own.
This evidence about Colonel Edgecombe appears to be hearsay. Mrs. Dixon.
Yes, my lord, I have no objection to a little harmless background material.
Oh, very well.
Now, this plot of land, is that where the police constable discovered the fire?
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, the colonel put the place on the market, and Berry, the accused, made an offer for it. But later on, the colonel, he changed his mind. He wrote to Berry telling him so, but Berry wrote back an unpleasant sort of letter saying that as far as he was concerned, they, the colonel and Berry, had a contract, and he had no intention whatsoever of releasing the colonel from it, which, of course, was nonsense, because, in my opinion, there was no contract. I mean, they had exchanged preliminary letters, and Berry had paid a deposit. But in my view, there was definitely no contract to sell, or to buy, for that matter, and I told the colonel so. But Berry had written to the colonel saying he was quite prepared to take the matter to court. Well, of course, this upset the colonel terribly. He's not a well man. He hasn't been since the death of his wife. And he came to me and he asked for my advice. Well, my help, really. And I told him, leave the matter with me, Norman, and I'll see what I can do.
And presumably that is how you came to meet the accused.
Yes, my lord, but we wrote to him first.
We?
Well, some of the other Burnt Bridge residents and myself. We were becoming very concerned with the situation.
concerned on the Colonel's behalf.
Well, yes, that's a part of it, a large part of it. Anyway, we wrote to Berry saying the Colonel was very upset and that the whole thing had been a mistake to begin with. We offered him his money back, and a bit besides, and we enclosed a cheque, which he sent back with one of the corners singed.
Singed?
Yes, witchcraft possibly, or voodoo, or black magic, or whatever they call it.
Leperon, on what do you base that assertion? Have you any good reason for believing that the accused intended the singeing of the cheque to be a sign of witchcraft?
Well, not what you would call a good reason, my lord, but I was told that's what it meant.
Yes, I think, Mr. Leperon, it would be a good thing if you were to confine yourself to telling us what you know took place. I don't want any more emotive speculation about witchcraft.
Very well, my lord.
Now, Councillor, you say you wrote to the accused and enclosed a cheque which he sent back.
That is absolutely correct. He sent it back. Well, we decided that perhaps a more personal form of approach was what was required, and we went to see him. 3 of us, my solicitor, a neighbour of mine, Mr. Frank Manning, and myself. This time we took cash. We thought the sight of the money might make a difference. I mean, after all, some people don't like cheques. They're not accustomed to them, I suppose. But Berry was most uncooperative. I showed him the money, and he threw it at me. Ordered us out of the house. He said he was determined to have that land or go to prison for it.
He was determined to have the land or go to prison for it. You're sure that's what the accused said?
Oh, quite sure. We all heard him. Mind you, he was very angry at the time.
Was that the last time you saw the accused?
No, I'm sorry to say it was not. It was silly of us then, I realise that now, but at that time we thought it would be a good idea to try again. So this time, 2 of the ladies volunteered to go along with me, the lady residents, and we went back to see him. He wasn't in, not at first. His wife was there. Oh, a charming lady, absolutely charming. And we were chatting away most amicably when he burst in and ordered us out of the house. He called the ladies bitches, among other things, and threatened to throw us out bodily. Well, I mean, that was it, so far as we were concerned. There was absolutely no point in trying to talk sense to that man, and we left. But 3 days later, he turns up at my house, banged on the door, and demanded to see me. I went to the door, and he accused me of setting my sons onto his daughter. I told him he was mad. I mean, I didn't know he had a daughter. And I shut the door in his face.
Did you see him again after that?
Yes, I did. This time at the golf club. We just finished a meeting. I'm on the executive committee.
Yes.
We were in the bar when he arrived in a fuming temper. He stormed up to me and said he knew I was behind the preservation order.
Yeah. What preservation order is this, Mr. Leperon?
Well, if I might explain, my lord, it was
yeah?
a local order issued by the town clerk's office against the trees on Colonel Edgecombe's land. The
Yes,
order,
I see.
as far as I understand it, my lord, was issued as the result of a petition taken up and presented by Burnbridge residents,
Yes,
and
yes.
Moreover supported by a forestry commission expert.
Yes, a preservation order on the trees that were fired.
That is correct,
Yes,
my lord.
yes. Continue, Mr. Leperon.
Well, anyway, Berry said he knew I was behind the preservation order, but that it wouldn't work, because he'd see to it that there were no trees left to preserve, even if he had to pull them out with his bare hands.
No trees left to preserve.
He kept shouting it out. It was most embarrassing. I mean, half the club heard it.
Now, what would the effect of the preservation order be on any plans to build?
Oh, prohibitive. Impossible to build with the trees still there.
Now, can you remember the date of the accused's visit to the golf club?
As it happens, I can. It was Saturday, November the 9th, the day of our all-purposes committee meeting.
And also the day the trees were set on fire. Thank you, Councillor Leperon.
Councillor Leperon, you were at one time, were you not, the chairman of an organisation calling itself the Burnbridge Property Owners Protective Association?
That is correct, I was.
And your secretary-treasurer was Mrs. Patricia Manning, the sister of Police Constable Ernest Simon Edgley.
Yeah?
Councillor Leperon, why was your association created?
Well, because some of the Burnbridge residents felt there was a need for it. We were at that time faced with a very serious threat to our house and land values, and we formed the association in order to protect ourselves.
A serious threat to house and land values? Now, what was this serious threat?
Oh, come on, you know as well as I do.
No, would you please answer the question, what was this serious threat?
Oh, good heavens. Well, the threat was Berry. He was the threat. You know as well as I do what can happen to property values when
When a Negro?
when a coloured immigrant moves into a neighbourhood like ours. I've seen thousands knocked off the value of houses and land because one of them, only one, moved into the area. But there's nothing personal in it. It's not his fault, and it's not mine. It's an economic fact of life. There's no use looking at me as though I've committed some outrageous moral offense. I had my house and the houses of my neighbors to protect.
So your association was formed with the specific intention of keeping the accused out of the Burnt Bridge estate?
Well, yes, but don't forget, once the dike is breached, the deluge follows.
How far was your association prepared to go in defense of house and land values, Councillor Leperon?
As far as the law allowed.
And no further?
Oh, now what are you suggesting?
Oh, well, simply that the obvious might have occurred to one of your association members, that he or she might have realized that the accused had, by his threats, placed himself in an invidious position should anything at all untoward happen to the trees.
If I may say so, this is absolute rubbish. We are respectable, law-abiding people.
Law-abiding, really? Now, Mr. Berry came to your house with the accusation that your sons had been frightening and molesting his daughter.
That is correct.
And had they been molesting and frightening his daughter?
Good God, no.
How many sons have you, and how old are they?
2. The eldest 19, the other's just 17.
And do they own a car?
The elder boy does, a little red Mini. I gave it to him for his birthday.
Did you ever have occasion to discuss the situation about the accused and the land and his refusal to cooperate with your sons?
Well, we talked about it, yes, of course we did. We're a very communicative, a very close family. We share most of our experiences.
Then how did they feel about it?
Oh, much the same way as I did, I imagine. Exasperated with that fellow's stubbornness.
And angry?
You're leading up to something. What are you trying to suggest?
Well, that perhaps your sons, like good sons and like good members of a close and sharing family, might have wanted to help you with an exasperating problem which you were getting nowhere with.
That is an outrageous suggestion.
But you will admit, surely, that your association stood to gain by the destruction of these trees.
Oh, in what way, Mrs. Dixon? It appears to me that once the preservation order had been put on the trees, the anxieties of the Residents' Association were at an end.
Well, that's not entirely so, my lord. As we've heard from this witness, the accused intended to challenge the order. The matter was a long way from being settled. And it must have been quite clear to the association members that if anything did happen to those trees, the accused would be the very first suspect.
Oh, well, now, Mrs. Dixon, I think there's a touch, probably a little more than a touch of speculation in what you are saying. I see what you're trying to do, but this isn't the time to do it, unless, of course, you've got evidence.
No, my lord.
Well, then you can't take it much further, can you?
Very well, my lord. One more question, Councillor Leperon. On the night of the crime, were your sons at home?
I don't keep them chained up at night, you know. I can't remember where they were.
I see. I have no more questions.
Mr. Lotterby?
No, my lord, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leperon.
Thank you, my lord.
I call Peter Facey.
The case of the Queen against Berry will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.
Peter Blair Facey of flat 237 Victoria Crescent, Fulchester.
Sir, that's right.
What is your occupation, Mr. Facey?
Well, I'm a salesman, really. Motor cars. I mean, that's what I usually do, but right now I'm filling in time as a barman, like.
I see. Do you know the accused?
Mr. Berry? Yeah. Yeah, I know him. I worked for him 3 years selling cars.
When was the last time you saw him?
November the 9th, a Saturday.
And where was this?
In his wheels. His car. Came by my place about 3 o'clock and blew the horn. I went down to see him, and we sat in the car and talked.
And what sort of car was this?
Oh, the old Cadillac. Mr. Berry never drove anything else.
Now, what was the accused's apparent state of mind, would you say?
It was boiling a bit. Going on about some white people doing him out of his rights. Something about some land he couldn't build on because of some trees. Anyway, I told him the best thing to do was just play it cool. I mean, if they don't want you living with them, Then, gazilts. Forget it.
What did he reply to that?
Said he couldn't. Then he asked me if I wanted 200 quid to get rid of the trees for him. So I said, how, man? And he said, fire. You can do a lot with a match and a can of petrol. So I told him, no, man, not my line.
Did he say anything to that?
Well, not right away. He kind of sat there thinking. Then he opened the door for me to get out. And as I was getting out, he said, all right, in this world, if you want something done, you've got to do it yourself.
Mr. Facey, you've said that sometime after 3 on the afternoon of November the 9th, you and the accused held a conversation in his car.
That's right.
And during the conversation, the accused offered you £200 to destroy a group of trees by fire.
Yeah.
And when you refused, he left you, saying, in effect, that he would have to do the job himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't swear that was what he meant. I mean, you never can tell what's going on in Mr. Berry's mind.
I see. Now, this conversation took place in his 1964 Cadillac, did it?
That's right.
And during this conversation, which lasted, what, 10, 15 minutes?
About 10 minutes.
Yes. During this 10-minute conversation, did anyone you know see you and the accused sitting in this very noticeable car?
Nah, I don't think so.
So we only have your word, your unsupported word, that the accused met you at all that afternoon.
If you put it like that, yeah.
I do put it like that, Mr. Facey. Now, you once worked for the accused, didn't you?
That's right.
Why did you leave his employment?
We had a sort of disagreement. I can't even remember what it was about now.
But you promptly went out and got yourself a job as a barman.
Yeah.
Had you any previous experience as a barman?
No, I've told you. I'm a car salesman.
Where did you get this barman's job, Mr. Facey?
It was out at the country club, the Burnt Bridge Golf and Country Club.
Oh, is that the club where Councillor Leperon serves as a committee member?
That's right.
Do you know the councillor?
Well, I don't know him. I've seen him, like. He was on that panel that interviewed me for the job.
Is this the panel that gave you the job as barman, even though you were unqualified?
Yeah, I just said.
Yes. Now, when did you start working at the Burnt Bridge Golf and Country Club?
On the Friday. They were having a sort of do that night and wanted me to start a couple of days earlier. Friday, November the 15th.
The 15th? Do you like the accused, Mr. Facey?
Like?
Yes. Are you fond of him? Is he a friend of yours?
He's all right. Yeah, I suppose you could say we were friends.
Friends? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you voluntarily went to the police with your statement, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you volunteered to give information against your friend?
Are you suggesting that he should have withheld his evidence?
No, my lord.
Glad to hear it.
But there is an inconsistency here. Now, the witness has just told us that he was a friend of the accused.
No, Mrs. No inconsistency. A man may loyally support his friend when he knows that friend has been law-abiding. He may speak out against that friend if that friend may have broken the law.
Mr. Facey, when did you go to the police with your voluntary statement?
On the Sunday, the 17th.
17, so that's some 7 days after the arrest of your friend, the accused, and 2 days after you started your job as barman at the Burnt Bridge Golf and Country Club.
That's right.
You were put up to inventing this story, weren't you?
No, madam.
I have no more questions.
Mr. Facey, did anyone at the country club, anyone at all, suggest that you go to the police with your statement?
No, sir. I went because it was my duty to go.
Unless your lordship has any questions? That concludes the case for the prosecution.
I call the defendant, Charles Solomon Berry. You are Charles Solomon Berry of 33 and 33A Byron's Passage, Fulchester.
Yes, I am.
What is your occupation, Mr. Berry?
I buy and sell cars, second-hand mostly, and I have a repair yard and a service station.
Where are you from originally?
From the West Indies, but I've been here since 1954, and I've been a citizen since 1968.
Do you or did you recently own a large dark blue American car, a 1964 Cadillac?
Yes.
Now, when was the last time you drove this car, Mr. Berry?
Round about the end of October, she busted down. I tried to start on the morning of the 29th of October to take my young boy to the zoo, but the fan belt burst, and I had to use the station wagon instead.
2 witnesses have testified that they saw you in this car on November the 9th and November the 10th.
Couldn't be. She was busted.
Or could there have been someone else in your car?
Don't see how. Not without the fan belt.
Then you are saying that these witnesses were mistaken.
Mistaken? Didn't the boy Facey say that he sat in the car with me? What kind of a mistake is that? Either he lying or me.
Now, I believe, Mr. Berry, that on the 3rd of May, 1974, you applied to buy a plot of land in Burnbridge Avenue from one Colonel N.J. Edgecombe. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the Colonel's solicitors wrote back accepting your application, did they not?
Yes.
Yes, and then you sent off a deposit as a sign of good faith.
Yes.
And then I believe the Colonel wrote to you saying that he'd changed his mind about selling his plot of land.
Yes. But before that, maybe 2 or 3 days before that, I got a letter from Mrs. Dorothy Pellerine of Burnbridge Avenue. She wrote to me to say that some of the people there was forming some sort of association or something to bar me from the land.
There is a copy of the letter in the bundle, my lord.
Yes, yes, I have it. Thank you.
And did Mrs. Pellerine say in her letter why these people wanted to bar you from the land?
Color.
Then you heard from Colonel Edgecombe.
Yes, and I wrote back saying there was a contract and that they had taken my money.
Money?
The deposit, my lord.
And I told them that I wanted the land. Then I get a letter from this man, Leperon, saying that the whole thing was a mistake. So I wrote back and told him, mistake or not, I'm entitled to live where I like. Then I get another letter from him with a check in it. I mean, it looked like the man hadn't understood what I said to him. So I burned a corner of the check to show him what I thought of his money and sent the check back. That's the bit he thought was voodoo.
Yes, Mrs. Dixon, most of these points have been made before, and as far as I know are not disputed. Is it necessary to go over them again?
No, not if your lordship directs otherwise.
I'm not directing you to do anything, Mrs. Dixon. I'm merely asking if it's necessary to make these points, which have been made and no doubt noted by the jury.
My lord...
Further, I do not see that any of this relates as to whether or not the accused is innocent or guilty of the charge he faces.
My lord, I'm merely trying to show the intensity of the opposition to the accused's proposed move to Burnt Bridge.
Ah, but is it likely to be of any use, Mrs. Dixon?
I believe it is, my lord.
Oh, very well.
Mr. Berry, we have, as his lordship has just pointed out, already heard from Councillor Leperon about this opposition to your proposed move to Burnt Bridge Avenue. However, I believe there were other indications of opposition, were there not?
Oh, yes. You mean the letters and the phone calls?
Yes. Would you tell the court about them, please?
Anonymous. Every day, 2 or 3 letters saying, go home, nigger, stay away from Burnbridge Avenue. And the phone calls to my wife. They frightened the daylights out of her. It gets so that she begged me to start to forget about Burnbridge. She said that if I don't leave Burnbridge alone, she gonna leave me. She says she ain't going to risk anything happening to the children on account of my foolishness. I tell her it ain't foolishness because I ain't doing anything wrong. I'm entitled to live where I like. I have that right. All my life, from the age of 4, I've been working, and I'm going to be 60 next birthday, and I haven't stopped. I tell her I got that right. I work for what I have. Nobody helped me, and I never asked her for help. Never.
Do you know who sent the anonymous letters or made the anonymous phone calls?
No, I'm not certain. The wives say the voices sound like young people on the phone. 2 voices, boy, she said. But you can't tell on the phone whether it's a boy or not.
And the letters?
There's no way.
I believe you received a visit on August the 28th.
2. The first was from the man Leperon and 2 ladies. Mrs. Manning and Mrs. Cook. They arrived at the house when I wasn't there. I got back about 4:30 and found that they had a wife in tears. So I tell them to get out. And the woman Manning said to me, I'm behaving like an uncivilized savage. And I lost my temper and I call her a prune-faced bitch.
And the second visit?
That was from Mrs. Manning's brother, Edgley, the policeman. He come by the house about 11 o'clock that night. He said he's going to teach us nignogs to know our place and that I had no right to talk to his sister like that. So then he starts stomping all over the place. He turned over the tables, the beds. He had the children crying the children out of bed. He turned over everything. And he said, that I had no right to talk to his sister like that. I should have listened to her when she come to talk to me, but it's too late now. And he went away.
But he returned the following night, didn't he? That's the night of August the 29th.
Yes, same time, 11, same thing again. Getting the children out of bed, telling them their father is a thief. He said to me, I'm going to keep coming back until you get sense. I say, no, sir. I'm going to see your officer. And then he laughed and he said, ha, you think they're going to believe a nigger against a white man, do you? So early the next morning, I went to the police station. And I said to the man there, I come to make a complaint against a policeman. And the man behind the desk say, tell me. And I say, no, I want to see the chief. Well, then they put me in a room. I was there from 8 o'clock until 1 o'clock. And then after a while, another one of them, a policeman, come in and he say, oh, you still here? And I say, until doomsday, or I see the chief. Then about 30 minutes later, they come in and they bring me in front of this man, Macbeth. He's a superintendent or something. Well, I tell him what's been going on and listen to me, and after a while he say, very well, Mr. Berry, you may go back home now. I'll see to it that it never happen again. So I went home.
Now, you went to see Councillor Leperon at his home on August the 31st. Why?
That was over Tally, my little girl. She had come home from this fair, and she was on her way, and there was this car with two young boys in it, really, two young men. And the car pull up, and they jump out, and one of them hold her up against the wall, and the other one say to her, so you want to be white, do you? Well, here's your chance now. And he dumped a pot of white paint on the child. Well, she come home. She come home in a state, and she tell me that it was a red Mini, and she sure she recognized one of the boys as being the son of Councillor Leperon. So I went to see him. But what could I do? Beat up the man? I don't believe in violence. I just want him to keep his children out of it. There was nothing else I could do. Then I go back home to find that the wife had gone with the children. And she left me a letter saying that when I get over this stupidness about Burnt Bridge and forget all about it and change my mind, she's going to come back. I can't change my mind. I don't want to live there anymore. But I got the right. I must have the right. Otherwise,
Now, Mr. Berry, would you tell us about your visit to Councillor Leperon at the golf club on November the 9th?
yes. That was over the preservation order. I had got this letter from Colonel Edgecombe's solicitors on a Thursday saying that there'd been a preservation order placed on the trees and that nobody could build on the land. So I went to the town hall, and a man there told me that the town clerk had gone out with Mr. Leperon, who had come in with this petition. They had gone out to have lunch, and that when they come back, the town clerk said to this man, see to this. And they had made this preservation order on the land. Then I went to see my solicitors, and they say to me, fight it. But then on the Saturday, I get a letter from them saying, don't fight it, you'll lose. So I went to see Leperon.
Did you threaten to destroy the trees?
Well, yes, maybe, sort of, but, I didn't mean it. I was angry at the time.
After you left Councillor Leperon at the golf club, where did you go?
Back home.
Did you stop off to see Facey?
Miss, I haven't seen Facey since the end of October.
What car did you drive to the golf club?
A Ford Cortina. The Cadillac was busted.
Mr. Berry, did you destroy those trees?
No, miss. Why should I? And you think that if I was going to burn down them trees, I was going to drive up there in a Cadillac so that everybody could see it?
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Well, Mr. Berry, you've told us a very sad and disturbing story. And you and your family have my deepest sympathies. However, this court and this jury are concerned not with your fellow citizens' behavior, but with your own. And there is nothing that you've told us, Mr. Berry, that would justify the willful and unlawful destruction of other people's property, is there? You do understand that?
Oh, I understand. Better than you think.
Good. Now, Mr. Berry, you've told us that your easily recognizable 1964 Cadillac was not working on the night of the crime, that it had been out of commission with a broken fan belt since October the 29th. That is what you have said, is it not?
You heard me.
You're a trained mechanic, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
You employ other trained mechanics in your repair yard?
Yes, 4, and 1 apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me, Mr. Berry, I'm ignorant of these matters. How long would it take an experienced mechanic like yourself to replace a broken fan belt?
Oh, just a few minutes.
Just a few minutes. And you allowed your valuable car to stand useless and immobile, but it would have taken just a few minutes to repair it?
Yes.
Why, Mr. Berry?
Well, we was busy in the yard.
Too busy for you or any of your 5 employees to spare a few minutes to fix your car?
Yes.
Did anyone know that your car was out of order, Mr. Berry?
No.
You told none of your staff?
That's right.
None of them asked you why you were no longer driving it?
No.
So it sat idly in your repair yard for how long was it? From October the 29th until the day of your arrest.
That is
November the 10th. And no one asked you why.
That is what I told you.
It's an extraordinary situation, don't you think?
But
that you, a trained mechanic with a staff of equally trained mechanics, should allow a valuable car to stand idle, to waste away, when any one of you could have repaired it in a matter of minutes.
But that is what happened.
Well, well. Now, this Ford Cortina that you say you drove to the golf club, do you know if anyone saw you drive it away?
No one.
No one. Well, did anyone see you drive it back?
No one. I was upset that day, and I let everybody go at 1 o'clock.
You let them all go, Mr. Berry? But what? A moment ago, you've just said that you were too busy to fix your own car. Now you say you let your entire staff go.
I was upset about the preservation order. I didn't feel like working that day.
What did you feel like, Mr. Berry?
I told you I was upset.
Let me see if I've understood this. Your car stands idle because of a broken fan belt. But no one knows about it, and no one does anything to repair it because you were too busy in the yard. You therefore drive a Ford Cortina, but no one sees you drive it away or back because although you are too busy even to fix your own car, you've allowed your entire staff to take the half-day off. Now that is what you are asking us to believe, is it?
You can believe what you want.
But is that what you have said?
All right, yes, go on. All right, that's what I said.
And yet, Mr. Berry, 2 witnesses have testified that they saw you driving this immobilized Cadillac, haven't they?
What do you want me to say? They can say what they want. They're either speaking the truth or I am lying.
I want you to tell me the truth, Mr. Berry.
You don't make me laugh. You want me to say I did it. You think I'm such a fool? You think that I'm such a stupid old black man that I'm going to go and burn down some trees when I know the first person they're going to be looking for is me?
Did you burn those trees?
You want me to say yes?
Just the truth, Mr. Berry.
Just the truth. You say please, and I'll say yes. How is that? You say please to a black man, and I'll say yes to you.
Berry, Mr. Lotterby has already told you all we wish to do is establish the truth.
My lord, I didn't go anywhere near them trees. Nowhere near. I'm not such a fool.
The anonymous letters, Mr. Berry, and the phone calls and the visits from Councillor Leperon, did they anger you?
No. They hurt me, but I wasn't angry.
And the attack on your little girl, did that anger you?
Yes.
And when you were advised by your solicitors not to fight the preservation order, did that anger you?
Yes.
And did you perhaps feel that you and your family were being unjustly persecuted?
No, not persecuted. Cheated.
Of what you thought was legally yours?
I never thought the land was legally mine, but I knew I had the right to buy it.
So you felt deprived, cheated of that right?
Yes.
Deprived enough to want to take vengeance, deprived enough to want to punish those who would hurt you and your wife and your children.
Sure, I wanted to punish them, but I never went near them trees.
I put it to you, Mr. Berry, that you did go near those trees, and that hurt and humiliated, you attempted to burn those trees down as an act of vengeance.
No.
A police constable saw you at the scene of the crime, Mr. Berry.
No, sir, not me. I wasn't there. I was at home. I was home all night. I was there when the police came to get me. I was in bed.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Oh, Mrs. Dixon, you wish to re-examine?
No, thank you, my lord.
Very well. You may return to the dock. Oh, perhaps I may be let into the secret, Mrs. Dixon.
Oh, excuse me, my lord. I've just received some further information which I believe is of importance to the case for the defence, and I would like it to be admitted in evidence.
You've seen this, Mr. Lotterby?
Yes, my lord, I've had a glance at it.
Well, may I see it? Well, no signature on this document, Mrs. Dixon. How was the information received?
Over the telephone, my lord, but the person who is the source of the information has expressed his willingness to attend. If my learned friend wishes, I would be happy to call him. However, it might take some time, for, as your lordship can see, he is some distance away.
Well, Mr. Lotterby?
Well, my lord, I'll need time to confirm the authenticity of this information and to take further instructions.
Yes, well, will 30 minutes be enough?
I sincerely hope so, my lord.
Well, so do I. We'll adjourn for 30 minutes.
All stand.
The case of the Queen against Berry will be concluded tomorrow in the Crown Court.
Well, now, Mr. Lotterby, have you been able to deal with this document presented so dramatically by Mrs. Dixon?
Yes, my lord.
And is the information contained in the document authentic?
As far as we've been able to discover, my lord.
May I again ask your lordship to direct that the information in this document be admitted in evidence?
Oh, Mr. Lotterby.
I have no objection, my lord.
Very well. Members of the jury, as you probably noticed, something a little out of the ordinary was taking place. We weren't able to explain it to you at the time because it was a matter of law. But I think I can now put you in the picture. Mrs. Dixon has produced this document containing information which she thinks might be of some help to the case for the defense, and she has asked that it should be admitted as a piece of evidence. Now, Mr. Lotterby has confirmed the authenticity of the information contained in the document when he has no objection to its admission. Therefore, I am now able to direct that it shall be admitted. Copies are being made so that each one of you shall have one when you retire to the jury room to consider your verdict. Yes?
Before I call the next witness for the defence, I would like to ask the court's permission to put this new information to Police Constable Edgley.
Well, Mr. Lotterby, yes. Constable Edgley, please return to the witness box. I remind you that you are still on oath.
Constable Edgley, you earlier told this court, did you not, that on the night of the crime with which the accused is now charged, the night was not very dark and there was a bit of a moon.
Yes, madam.
And you also said, did you not, that because the night was not very dark, you were able to see the car from a distance of about 80 yards.
Yes, madam, I could see the shape of it. That is, I could see that there was something there and that it was a car.
And then you said that you thought you recognized it from a distance of about 50 yards, but you were not certain you knew it until you were between 30 and 25 yards away from it. Is that correct?
Yes, madam, something like that, yeah.
And you were also able to recognize the accused from about 15 yards.
Yes, madam.
Positive identification of both car and driver because the night was not very dark and there was a bit of a moon.
Yes, madam.
Now, Constable Edgley, would you care to reconsider any of these statements?
No, madam.
Are you quite certain?
Yes, madam.
Well, perhaps you'd like to reconsider your statement about how dark the night was.
There's no reason to reconsider anything, madam. I don't want to change anything I've said.
Very well, then. May I borrow the document for a moment, my lord?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. This document contains certain information which has already been verified by my learned friend. It is, in effect, a statement of fact, obtained from the Bracknell, Berkshire headquarters of the Meteorological Office, and it was issued by the Director General of the Meteorological Office. Weather conditions for Fulchester and area from 6 o'clock on the evening of Saturday, November the 9th, through to 6 o'clock on the morning of Sunday, November the 10th. Overcast throughout the period, with 8/8 clouds, base 300 to 600 feet, extending in thick layers to well over 10,000 feet. Visibility generally poor, with some fog patches. The sky was completely obscured by a dense bank of cloud. Well, I think that speaks for itself, Constable Edgley. It was a very dark night, and there was no moon, not a bit of a moon. Now, do you still say that in the conditions described in this document, you were able to see the midnight blue car at 80 yards, recognize it at 25, and then positively identify the accused at 15 yards?
Yes, madam, I do.
Well, I put it to you, Constable, that you could not possibly have done, not without a very powerful set of night glasses.
I know what I saw, madam. I saw him and I saw his car.
Are you saying that the weather report is incorrect?
Well, I wouldn't know about that, my lord. All I know is that I saw the car in Burnbridge Avenue and I saw the accused sitting in it. And I know there were bits of moonlight. I know what I saw, my lord.
Thank you, Constable Edgley. No more questions.
No, my lord, thank you.
Thank you, officer.
I call Mrs. Dorothy Pellerine.
Dorothy Pellerine, please.
What is your religion?
Oh, I'm an atheist. Don't believe in all this mumbo-jumbo.
Mumbo-jumbo?
Superstitious nonsense meant to frighten children and old men. You lot will always believe in such nonsense. Helps to support the system.
I suppose you better affirm, Mrs.
Well, I
Pellerin.
suppose I've got to.
Raise your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
Well, wait a minute. I do solemnly, sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Ooh.
You are Mrs. Dorothy Pellerine, widow, of 79 Burnbridge Avenue, Burnbridge Estate, Fulchester.
I am.
The same Mrs. Dorothy Pellerine who, on June the 4th, wrote to the accused, telling him that attempts would be made to prevent him from buying Colonel Edgecombe's plot of land.
That's right, that was me. I wrote to him. Damn disgrace, gagging up against him like that. They called on me, you see. They came to see me.
They?
So sorry. What?
You said they came to see you. Who?
Sorry, this new hearing aid. You were saying?
I wanted to know who they were, Mrs. Pellerine.
Oh, Leperon and his bunch wanted me to join some association to keep the poor man out. I told them, don't be so silly. Act your ages. The man is entitled to live when he wants to, as long as he can afford it. Why he'd want to live in Burnt Bridge, I can't for the life and soul of me imagine.
I take it then that you had no objections to a coloured person living in the avenue.
Objections? My dear young woman, I would welcome it, as long as he behaved himself. A lot of nonsense, all this talk about colour, you know. I always say that...
No, Mrs. Pellerine, I would like to take your mind back now, if you please, to the early morning hours of November the 10th. Do you remember anything about that date?
Well, of course I remember. Why shouldn't I? I'm not senile, you know.
What were you doing between the hours of 12 midnight and 2 o'clock on the morning of November the 10th?
12 midnight and 2 o'clock. You know, 50 years ago, or even 40, that might have been an indiscreet question. We've all had our crack of the whip, you know. I expect his lordship sitting up there was a bit of a devil in his day. I remember exactly what I was doing. I was walking. Well, really, I started out walking and ended up by watching a fire and making tea for firemen.
Walking at that hour?
Yeah. I always go walking after midnight. Insomniac. Can't sleep. Haven't been able to sleep since Freddie died. Stay awake most of the night. Play chess. Competition stuff, out of books. And I walk 2-3 times round the block, sometimes helped.
Yes, Mrs. Dixon, can we get...
Oh, yes, of course, you want to know about November the 10th, don't you? Well, I started out on my walk as usual.
Yes. At what time did you begin your walk?
1 o'clock.
How did you know it was 1 o'clock?
Well, how does anyone know the time? I looked at my watch, of course. Well, I set out at 1 o'clock, planning to do my usual brisk 2 or 3 times round the block. But the night was not a pleasant one. Very dark, low, oppressive clouds.
Was there a moon?
Well, none that I could see. So I decided to walk to the top of the avenue.
That's towards Burgoyne Terrace.
Right, yes.
Which meant, did it not, that you would have to pass Colonel Edgecombe's plot of land?
Yes, I always go past the Colonel's land. Phoebe likes it.
Phoebe?
The dog. Lots of trees. I always let her off the lead just there. She has a good old frolic among the trees and then catches me up further up the avenue. But this night, very odd. She didn't want to go. Sat by my heels, wouldn't budge. So I picked her up, poor little thing, and went on up to the top of the avenue, then turned round, came down again.
Did you at any point during the course of your walk see any motor car parked in Burnbridge Avenue?
No motor car, but I saw the fire on the way down the avenue. Glow, a sort of flickering glow at the back of the Colonel's land. And I thought, hello, so that was what was the matter with Phoebe.
So you hadn't noticed the fire on your way up?
No. If I had, young woman, I should have mentioned it. Well, there we were, Phoebe and I, confronted by a fire. Didn't know what to do. Thought I'd better have a look before alarming everyone. But there was this policeman.
Policeman?
Yes, that chap there, Edgley, he got there before me.
What was he doing?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just standing there looking at the flames. Well, I said, do you want any help? And he said, push off.
Push off?
Well, something to that effect. I know it ended with off.
Silence.
So, what did you do?
Well, I pushed off. At least I started to. Then he said something else, and I thought he was talking to me, so I stopped. But he was mumbling into that radio thingamabob of his.
You're sure about that?
Yes, that's quite sure. Then he took off his raincoat and started beating at the flames.
So he was still wearing his raincoat when you first saw him?
Yes, he was. Well, so I left him to it and went to the pavement and watched. He wasn't doing very well. I nearly offered my help again, but I didn't want to be told to push off twice in one night. Then the fire engines arrived and one of those screechy police cars, and I made tea for the firemen, and, well, that was that. Pity, too. Bit of excitement.
Thank you, Mrs. Pellerine.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
TV lawyers.
Mrs. Pellerine, the night and the... Mrs. Pellerine, can you hear me?
Well, of course I can.
Jolly good. The night and the time of the crime, you say you were out walking. You left the house at about 1 o'clock, that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
1 o'clock. And it was, as you have said, a dark night. Were you wearing your glasses?
As it happens, young man, I was. Try again.
Were you wearing your hearing aid?
Never go anywhere without it.
So if there'd been a car on Burnbridge Avenue, you would have seen it and you would have heard it drive away.
Yes.
Unless, of course, your watch was wrong. Oh, just 1 or 2 minutes slow and you would have missed the car altogether, wouldn't you?
Ah, but it's never slow. Always keeps perfect time.
Oh, isn't there a chance that it might have been just a little slow?
Well, of course, it could have been, but it wasn't.
If it had been slow, just 1 minute slow, you would have missed the car, wouldn't you?
Yes, but it wasn't.
Were the street lights on when you left your house?
No.
Well, there we are. We all know that the street lights at Burnt Bridge go out at 1 o'clock. So it's more than likely that you left your house just after 1, isn't it?
Yes, well, you are right about the street lights, so you might well be right about the time.
Which would explain why you didn't see the car.
If there ever was a car there.
Now, Mrs. Pellerine, in this letter that you wrote to the accused, you said that you would do anything you could to help him.
Yes, I did.
Did that offer include perjury, Mrs. Pellerine?
It most certainly did not.
Then what did it include exactly?
Well, I don't know exactly. I was trying to convey to the poor man that he was not alone, that not all white persons were fascists and racialists.
What are your political views and opinions, Mrs. Pellerine?
They're none of your business.
Are they, Mr. Lotterby?
I think so, my lord.
Then put the question again.
Mrs. Pellerine, you're a Marxist, are you not?
Oh, well, if I'm anything at all, yes, that's what I am.
So naturally you regarded the efforts of your neighbours to keep the accused out of Burnt Bridge as reactionary.
Fascist.
You wanted to help the accused.
Yes, I did.
Because you felt so strongly about the situation.
Yes, very strongly.
And that is why you have come into this court to lie.
I do not lie, young man.
I put it to you, Mrs. Pellerine, that you've allowed your natural sympathy for the accused to lead you into this most unfortunate situation, and that you are lying to this court.
I have heard quite enough from you, young man.
You wrote to the accused on June the 4th. Now, did you correspond with him after that date or talk with him on the telephone?
I am answering no more of your questions.
Have you talked with or corresponded with the accused since June the 4th, Mrs. Pellerine?
No more questions.
I'm afraid you must answer learned counsel's questions, Mrs.
But I won't.
You must.
What will you do to me if I don't? Send me to prison? I know you'd like to. You're not concerned with justice, only punishment.
Yes.
I will not answer any more of that man's questions.
Mrs. Pellerine.
And you can send me to prison if you wish.
Mrs. Pellerine, no one wants to send you to prison, but you must answer questions put to you by counsel, for that is the reason you are here.
All right, my lord. No more questions.
I have no re-examination.
Oh, well, in that case, Mrs. Pellerine, you may leave the witness box.
Cheated of another victim.
Go and sit down.
Yes, your lordship.
Police Constable Edgley has told us that on the night the trees were fired, at approximately 1 o'clock, he saw the accused's car, an American Cadillac, very noticeable car, parked close by the scene of the crime. He also told us that he recognized the accused, who then drove off in a highly suspicious and hasty manner. Now, Police Constable Edgley is a trained observer, and I suggest that it takes a good deal more than a meteorological report to undermine the accuracy of his eyewitness account. Now, the accused has told us that he couldn't have been seen in his Cadillac at the scene of the crime because the Cadillac was out of order with a broken fan belt. But no one appears to have known about the Cadillac's indisposition, not even the accused's trained staff of mechanics. And then we have the witness Facey, who has told us that he was offered money to destroy the trees while sitting in this out-of-order car. And that very night, the trees were fired. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this case has not been without some highly undesirable emotional overtones. Many people have acted badly, but we are not here at this time to deal with such matters. We are here simply to decide whether or not the accused is guilty of arson. And from what we have heard, members of the jury, I submit there can be no doubt about that.
As to Police Constable Edgley, now he says that he saw the accused at the scene of the crime and at the time of the crime. Now that seems a simple enough statement. However, during the course of this trial, several points have arisen which raise at best a reasonable doubt as to the credibility of the constable as a witness. Firstly, his sister, Mrs. Patricia Manning, was an executive member of a residents' association which was formed with the sole purpose of keeping the accused away from buying a plot of land in Burnt Bridge Avenue. Now, was that just a coincidence? And then we have the matter of the constable's late-night visits to the accused's home, visits which terrified the children and frightened Mrs. Berry. And the first of these visits took place just a few hours after Constable Edgley's sister had paid an unwelcome call on the accused. Another coincidence? Or something disturbingly sinister. The implication of Mrs. Pellerine's evidence is that Police Constable Edgley failed to take any action whatsoever to put out that fire until he realised that there was a witness, both to the fire and to his own inactivity. Hardly the action of an upright guardian of the law, which the prosecution would make him out to be. And then we have the constable telling us that he positively identified the accused at the scene of the crime, when, according to the meteorological office, the night was such that he could not possibly have done so. No, members of the jury, being as charitable as one can to the constable, it is quite obvious that we must exercise the greatest possible caution before accepting this witness's testimony at its face value. So now we come to Councillor Leperon. Well, now, what can I say about Councillor Leperon and his association? Well, only that he believes himself to be an honest and truthful man, and in that belief he's told us quite clearly what his feelings were about the accused's proposed move to Burnt Bridge. He was willing to do almost anything to keep him out. How far was he prepared to go, members of the jury? Or how far was the little protective band of householders prepared to go? For make no mistake, they knew that if anything happened to those trees, the accused would be the very first person to fall under suspicion. As for Facey, well, I shan't waste any time on him. The man is a hireling, so totally devoid of independent stature as to deprive his evidence of any weight whatsoever. My learned friend has urged you to forget about the emotional overtones in this case, by which, of course, he means the colour of the accused's skin and the prejudices and antagonisms which it provoked. But can we safely do that? You may think that the accused would not be here in this court today if it were not for the colour of his skin and for his determination not to be denied those rights which you or I or any citizen of this country should be free to enjoy. Reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, remember that. If there is one reasonable doubt in your minds, you must find the accused not guilty.
Members of the jury, it is my duty to instruct you as to the law. Now, the charge is arson, and that offence is committed where a person without lawful excuse destroys or damages property by fire, intending to destroy or damage such property, or being reckless as to whether or not it is so destroyed or damaged. Now, there are a number of questions to be answered here, some with disturbing implications, but you must not shirk your responsibility. There is material evidence, which is not disputed, that petrol-soaked rags and paper were packed around the trees. But as evidence against the accused, this becomes circumstantial, because no one actually saw who did this. No one actually saw who struck the match to fire the trees. Witnesses have testified that the accused expressed the intention to commit a crime, but an unfulfilled intention to commit a crime is not of itself a crime. One witness has testified, positively identified the accused in his familiar motor car at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. So the question you have to ask yourselves here is, was the accused at the scene of the crime? Did he go there to commit the crime? And did he, in fact, do so? The accused has denied having been at the scene of the crime. He has denied offering money to the witness, Facey, to commit a crime. And he has said that his familiar motor car was out of action at the relevant times. Now, if that motor car was out of action, then that means that the witnesses Edgley and Facey were either mistaken or lying. But you might say to yourselves that it is unlikely that they would lie. And if you do, then the case for the prosecution becomes clearer, because the evidence of those two witnesses is vital to that case. You should consider here that some connections between Constable Edgley and Councillor Leperon's Residents Association, and between the witness Facey and Councillor Leperon, have been revealed. You should also consider the important evidence of Constable Edgley's visits to the accused. Did the police officer go there in the course of his normal duty, or did he go there to threaten and intimidate? And if he did go there to intimidate, that doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of his evidence is false, but it does cast a doubt on it. Then you must consider that the accused has admitted that he wished to punish those he thought were depriving him of his rights. Now, here are some questions for you, not easy to answer. But you have had the opportunity to form your own opinions of the reliability of the witnesses and the accused when they gave their evidence. And if you are sure that the accused's guilt has been proved to your entire satisfaction, then your duty is clear. You must convict. If you are not so satisfied, then you must acquit. Will you now please retire and consider your verdict? Let the jury bailiff be sworn.
Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Please answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the defendant, Charles Solomon Berry, guilty or not guilty of the charge of arson?
Not guilty.
Very well. Mr. Berry, you are discharged and free to leave the court.
Court will rise.
Cameras return to bring you another leading case from the Crown Court.